Before we dive in, drop a quick hi in the comments. It may seem small, but trust me, it really helps YouTube share this story with more sci-fi fans like us. I'd love to see who's watching.
The reactor room of the UNS Vigilant stank of ozone, blood, and burnt sugar. A single emergency bulb swung overhead, painting the compartment in slow arcs of sickly red. Coolant hissed through ruptured lines, like steam from a dying dragon. The deck plates vibrated with the last dying heartbeat of a fusion core that had been screaming for mercy for 6 straight hours. Captain Thomas Nielsen knelt in the middle of it all, gloved fingers buried inside the reactor's exposed heart. His radiation badge had gone from yellow to black 8 hours ago. Didn't matter. The badge wasn't going to get 5 million people off the planet below. He coughed once, wet, coppery, and wiped his mouth on the sleeve of a uniform that used to be navy blue. Now it was the color of old rust. 22 seconds left on the patch, Cap, Lieutenant Marco Reyes called from the far side of the core. His left arm hung useless, bone jutting through the suit like a snapped spar. He was welding the final containment plate one-handed, torch spitting blue-white fire. Every spark that hit his visor he greeted with the same tired grin. 22 seconds is 19 more than we need, kid, Nielsen answered. Voice calm. Always calm. Even when his lungs were cooking from the inside. Reyes laughed. Short, sharp, the sound of a man who'd already said goodbye to tomorrow. Then he started singing, off-key and defiant, the first line of an old Earth song, Sweet Caroline. Half the remaining crew, 19 souls left of 200, picked it up without thinking. Voices raw, cracked, some whispering, some bellowing, all of them together. Bum bum bum. Petty Officer Tarek. Doc Halverson leaned against the bulkhead, morphine syringe in one hand, rosary in the other. Blood leaked from his ears in slow, perfect droplets that floated like rubies in the low gravity. He didn't bother wiping them away. "Never thought I'd die to Neil Diamond," he muttered in Norwegian, then switched to English so the others could hear. "But if we're going to hell, at least we go out with a tune." On the cracked holoscreen bolted to the wall, the Varkesh Armada filled the sky like a swarm of obsidian locusts. 50 capital ships, 200 support craft, all of them locked on the single, dying frigate that floated between them and the undefended colony world of New Copenhagen below. The Varkesh commander's voice rolled through the open channel, 8 separate throat sacs vibrating in perfect, chilling harmony. "Human vessel. You have 30 seconds to power down weapons and prepare for boarding. Refusal will result in immediate annihilation. 30, 29. Nielsen didn't answer the countdown. He looked at the 19 faces around him, faces he had known for years, some for decades. Kids he'd carried off burning decks, engineers who'd rebuilt engines with spit and prayers, a medic who'd once sewn his own intestines back in with dental floss. He smiled. It hurt, but it was real. "Anyone want to live forever?" he asked. Silence. Then Reyes, still welding, still singing, "Hell no, sir." Nielsen stood. The radiation had turned his skin the color of old parchment, but his eyes were steady. "Then let's remind them why the galaxy learned to fear a cornered human." He reached up and killed the open channel with a gentle, almost polite flick of a switch. The countdown kept going in the background, cold and mechanical. 20, 19, 18. Nielsen turned to the crew. "Reyes, can you give me one more burn?" Reyes grinned wider, teeth white against the soot on his face. "Already routed every jewel we've got left, Skipper. One burn, straight down their throats." "Good." Nielsen looked at Doc Halverson. "Doc, you still got that bottle of aquavit you've been saving for the end of the war?" Halverson pulled a flat metal flask from his medkit, tossed it underhand. Nielsen caught it one-handed. "Then let's drink to the kids on New Copenhagen. They get tomorrow. We get today." He took a swallow. The liquor burned clean all the way down. 11, 10, 9. Nielsen keyed the ship-wide intercom one last time. "All hands, this is the captain. We are not surrendering. We are not running. We are going to ram the biggest, ugliest son of a bitch in that fleet, tear a hole straight through to their bridge, and paint the inside of their ship with every ounce of spite humanity has left. If anyone has a problem with that, speak now." Silence. Then 19 voices as one. "No problem, sir." Nielsen closed the channel. He looked at the countdown. 3, 2, 1. He pressed the burn. The Vigilant, half her hull gone, reactor bleeding fire, crew already dead men walking, lit her engines for the last time and began to accelerate straight into the heart of the Varkesh Armada. And the crew finished the song, loud enough for the stars to hear. "Sweet Caroline, bum bum boom." The Varkesh learned, 31 seconds later, why humans count differently. The human ship did not answer. It did not change course. It did not warm weapons. It did not raise shields. Supreme Pack Leader. Krixavarash studied the flickering projection of the UNS Vigilant from the command dais aboard the Varkesh flagship Verktal-Ka. The vessel hung in space like a corpse nailed to orbit, hull ruptured, reactor signatures bleeding weakly, propulsion near zero. A dying thing. His honor guard stood at ceremonial attention behind him, their lacquered mandibles gleaming, thoraxes wrapped in blood-threaded ribbon marking conquest without resistance. The human ship had not fired. It had not fled. It had not begged. It had gone quiet. "Scan integrity," Krixavarash commanded. A tactician adjusted their sensory feed. "Hull fracture at 47%. Radiation leakage confirmed. Fusion yield unstable. Command deck cold. Life signs scatter minimal." "Speak plainly," Krixavarash said. "They are bleeding out." "They are mute," another officer added with disdain. Krixavarash inclined his carapace in ceremonial approval. Then they have chosen the correct ending. The colony below shimmered on the main projection. Millions of soft heat blooms, undefended and waiting like larvae inside a crystal shell. It would be a profitable harvest once the last human distraction burned out. "Maintain position," Krixavarash said. "No boarding, no spectacle. Let their light go out quietly." The honor guard shifted in patient stillness. The Varkesh did not rush. Time was a luxury of the winning side. Then the human ship moved, not drifting, not tumbling. Burning. "Thruster ignition detected," one officer snapped, auditory tendrils flaring in alarm. "Vector," Krixavarash demanded. The projection altered. Lines flared. Data screamed. The Vigilance engines glowed like dying stars venting fury instead of heat. "She's accelerating." Krixavarash stepped forward. "Toward us," the officer shouted. The bridge erupted into motion. "Deploy intercept fire." "Secondary batteries, now." "Reorient the flagship. Hard starboard." Void streaks slashed space as Varkesh cannons opened fire. Coherent beams carved past the charging frigate, tearing nothing but vacuum. The Vigilant did not evade. It did not zig. It burned straight and true. A bullet made of hate. She's ignoring defensive geometry. She's not compensating. She's not maneuvering. Krixavarash realized it in a single, perfect instant. The humans were not flying. They were falling on purpose. "Full reverse thrust," he roared. The flagship's engine screamed as titanic mass attempted to pull away, but the Vigilant was not aimed at them directly. Not the flagship. The dreadnought Fairak-Tel, second in command line, heaviest armor class, core battlecruiser, shield wall, unbreakable, until now. The UNS Vigilant tore through its central hull like a white-hot blade. It didn't shatter it, it unwrote it. The fusion core detonated spine first, metal screamed, space bent. The Fairak-Tel collapsed into a blossom of judgment, plasma geysers swallowing decks, bridge towers folding in on themselves, pressure waves snapping hull limbs like insect legs. The shockwave tore outward. One cruiser split cleanly down its axis. Two more lost drives, spinning away blind and burning. A carrier imploded as its hangar line detonated end to end. On the flagship Verktal-Ka, alarms howled. Energy waves slammed against armor plating. Support wings cracked. Secondary systems died. Fires broke containment. Krixivarish stood rigid as the feed disintegrated. The Vigilant was gone. No wreckage, no survivors, only aftermath. A technician, scorched and shaking, crawled into view. Supreme Pack Leader, the Firak Tel. Destroyed. Fleet in disarray. He paused, mandibles twitching. Some are withdrawing. FTL. Spooling. Krixivarish did not answer. He looked at the colony below, still untouched, and at the place in the void where the human ship had once been. Not through negotiation, not through superiority, through sacrifice, a species that turned its own extinction into a weapon. His mandibles clicked once, not in ritual, in bitter respect. There was a sound, faint, hollow, like breath on the inside of a cracked helmet. Petty Officer Tarek Halverson opened one eye. The other wouldn't respond. Blood clouded his vision. Something sharp was lodged beneath his ribs. Every inhale lit his nerves like broken wires. He was alive. That shouldn't be possible. The last thing he remembered was the Vigilant, burning reactor, screaming hull, the sound of a war hymn half sung and half screamed through a busted comm. And now, silence. The world around him was dim and weightless. He floated inside a med pod not built for space, scorched insulation, flash-frozen blood, a cracked viewport showing the void. Beyond the glass, he saw it. Wreckage, human and alien. Pieces of the Vigilant drifting like shattered prayers. Glowing fragments of what had once been hope and steel. A spreading cloud of twisted hull plating and liquefied mass, still venting radiation. Nothing coherent. No ship. No crew. Just atoms. They had done it. 19 crew. 1 dead reactor. 1 enemy flagship gone with them. And him? A medic in a casket, strapped to something hotter than a dying star. His hands shook as they found the object still clipped to his chest. A matte black data core, warm to the touch. And with that touch, the memory hit him. Not here. Not now. Inside the Vigilance core room. Sirens. Heat. The floor buckled under their boots. "I'm not leaving," Doc had said. "You need me. You're injured. I can—" Nielsen grabbed him by the collar and slammed him against the launch panel. Blood down his chin, eyes calm, already dead inside. "You save lives, Doc, not end them. That's your oath." Reyes, dragging his busted arm behind him, pried open a storage unit, pulled out the data core like it was a bomb, slammed it into the pod's chamber with his good hand. "Get this to Earth." "What is it?" "Everything. Mapped systems, resource spectrals, new colonies, the corridor, all of it. The lives of millions are in your hands now, Doc." Doc shook his head, but Nielsen pressed his forehead to Halverson's. "Tell them what we found. Tell them what it cost." They shoved him in, sealed the hatch. No goodbye. Through the fogged glass, Reyes gave him the finger and a crooked smile. Then the pod fired. The pain in his ribs surged all at once, raw, blinding, and the memory crushed down on top of it. His breath hitched once. Then the dark took him again. After hands he never saw pulled him back, he woke again to silence. The medbay was makeshift, colony-grade, white plastic walls and exposed piping. A child sat nearby, knees pulled to chest, staring at him like he was something out of a story. "Are you him?" she asked. Doc blinked. His voice was gone. "The one they sent back." He nodded once. She saluted, fist to chest. Not a word more. He turned his face away. "Later." The colony governor entered. Mid-50s, red eyes, voice like someone who hadn't spoken since the sky went bright. "We thought you were debris." Doc nodded. The governor stepped forward, slow. "We made a wall for them. Your crew. 19 names." He passed a tablet, a photo, a memorial plaque. Every name etched in steel. His was there, too. Crossed out. Under it, he came back. Doc stared at it for a long time, then set it down and with effort managed to ask, "Where's the core?" The data core sat beneath the comms tower, inside a reinforced vault built for storing colony blueprints, now repurposed as humanity's last hope. It was too dangerous to activate. No signal could be sent. Not yet. The colony's comms were fried. Power was limited. Broadcasting would light them up like a beacon. So the core stayed locked, untouched, untold. And Doc got to work. With 2 broken fingers and fractured ribs, he welded oxygen lines, rerouted food rationers, and booted frozen med-AIs that were barely out of beta. He didn't sleep. Didn't stop. "You're not a soldier," someone said. He didn't look up. "No, I'm what's left." Elsewhere, in deep space, Krixavarish stood before the remnants of the Varkesh War Council. His carapace was cracked, voice quiet. He did not explain, did not offer excuses. He simply said, "They did not die to win. They died to break the board." Earth received the burst transmission 36 hours later, encrypted, slow, relayed via automated beacon from the colony's orbital shell. A general stood alone in a dark room and watched the footage of the Vigilant's final charge. He didn't say anything for a long time. Then, 5 million saved by 19. "Make sure the next fleet knows their names." Doc stood at the edge of New Copenhagen as the sky turned purple with dust. Drones hummed, miners trained with pulse rifles that overheated after 3 shots. The governor approached, slow. "We picked up movement. Varkesh ships, survivors. Scouting or regrouping, we don't know." Doc nodded once. "Fleet's inbound," the governor added, "but it'll take time." Doc flexed his hand. The burns were still fresh. "Can you help us hold?" He looked over the colony. Children playing near sandbag emplacements. Welded barricades made from irrigation pipes and old drill rigs. He didn't smile. "Get me a plasma torch, a workbench, and every mining rifle you've got. We're going to build a wall out of everything that's not nailed down." The sky above New Copenhagen was the color of rusted steel, and the air stank of scorched wiring and grit. Doc Halverson stood at the colony's outer wall, if it could be called that. A line of welded-together mining carts, stripped irrigation pipes, and old solar array frames. Nothing about it was military. Nothing about it was enough. But it was standing. So was he. The plasma torch in his hand was low on charge, and his ribs still felt like shattered glass inside a wet sack. But he didn't care. He'd slept maybe 40 minutes in the last 2 days, and when the governor asked him how long he could keep this up, Doc had just said, "Long enough." At his feet, a kid no older than 12 shoved a crate of stripped-down rifle parts into place. "You think they'll hit us tonight?" he asked. Doc didn't look down. If they're smart, they'll wait until we're tired. And if they're not smart, then they'll hit us now. The first warning came just after dawn. Sensor blips, 1, then 3, then 4. A burst ping from the orbital shell, barely functioning, caught the movement. "Varkesh Raider class signatures, low orbit, decelerating." Same class that wiped settlements in minutes. Carried troops for ritualized extermination. ETA to ground contact? 17 hours. Doc stared at the screen, then turned away. "Then we've got 16 to make this place bleed harder than we do." The defense prep began. Oxygen was pulled from hydroponics to power the comm tower's partial uplink. Old mining drills were turned into fixed spears, pressure loaded to fire like anti-tank spikes. Drone AI that once tilled soil now laid perimeter charges made from plasma heaters. They dug trenches with shovels and welding torches. Everyone carried something. A pipe, a tool, a weapon, a reason. Someone called him Sir. "I work for a living," Doc snapped. "Keep digging." By midday, Doc stood before the colonists at the southern gate. He didn't give a speech. He didn't know how. He just said, "You're not soldiers. I'm not either. Doesn't matter. They're coming. They want this colony burned clean. We don't let them. They're gonna think we're scared. Let them. We'll show them what scared people do when they've got nothing left to lose." No one cheered, but no one walked away. High orbit. Pak Seer Huitalak, Varkesh Field Command, observed the colony from his spire ship. He studied the heat blooms of the human outpost, crude, fragile. Minimal resistance. They die with less ritual than cattle. His second asked, "Shall we wait for the others?" Hritalak's mandibles clicked in disdain. "You do not delay a cool." Next morning, 4 a.m., the sky cracked open. 3 Varkesh landers hit outside the colony wall. Dirt boiled under retro thrusters. The air went electric. Doc Halverson stood on the wall with a scoped miner's rifle. Scope didn't work. He didn't care. Positions! The first wave of Varkesh advanced. 8-limbed, armored. Their gait deliberate and hungry. A wall of ritual death. They moved in formation. Doc didn't blink. "Hold fire. Hold. 10 meters. Now." Mining drills fired first. Improvised rail spears punching through exoskeletons. Someone threw a thermal charge. Another detonated a plasma trap. The perimeter lit up like hell's own throat. Screams. Blades. Fire. A young colonist was dragged from cover by a Varkesh scout. Doc vaulted the barricade and shot it in the face with a flare gun. The thing went up like a bonfire. So did part of Doc's coat. Didn't matter. 2 hours later, the colony didn't fall. 33. Varkesh dead. The rest pulled back to orbit. Doc stood in the cratered mud, blood and ash caked into his hands. Someone handed him water. He didn't drink. A voice asked, "We won." Doc looked at the smoking field. "No, we survived. It's not the same thing." Nightfall. The wall held. Doc stood alone under floodlights powered by prayer and stolen power cells. Behind him, children sleeping in converted cargo bunkers. Families tending wounds with rationed gel packs. A broken town still breathing. The comm tower pinged once. High priority burst. Someone muttered behind him, "Comms came back for 2 minutes. Burned out again." The message on screen was short. "Fleet rerouted. ETA. 6 days." Doc stared at the screen. 6 days. He looked up at the sky. "Then we hold." He picked up his torch and went back to work. High orbit. Command deck. Varkesh. War crucible. Iraak Tal. Hritalak stood in full armor, scorched, cracked, still bleeding from the last surface push. Below him, failure. Above him, silence. Krixavarish descended the upper stairwell like a blade drawn from a ritual sheath. 8 limbs, no weapons, no need. "You engaged the colony before the fleet was aligned. I believed swift action would yield. You believed your name would rise above mine." Hritalak bristled, mandibles flaring. The chamber fell still. Even the war clerics froze. "We lost 2 siege beasts, 14 landing vessels, and a third of our forward infantry," Crix said calmly. "To farmers with cutting tools. They use no ritual, no honor. They fight like rabid beasts." "Then perhaps beasts are what we were bred to cull." Crix stepped forward. His forelimbs brushed the clan sigils carved into Hritalak's chest plate. Then, slowly, he tore them off. "You are stripped of right, rank, and name." He turned to the chamber. His voice echoed through the ritual spires. "This action no longer requires faith, only result. Strip the rites, silence the war chants, prepare for extermination." Hritalak dropped to one knee, shaking. Crix didn't even look back. Doc Halverson hadn't slept in 36 hours. The stimulants were fading, and every step felt like it belonged to someone else's body. But he walked the line anyway, past broken drones, scorched trench walls, and colonists slumped against rubble, too tired to speak. The outer perimeter, once a joke of irrigation pipe and bolted solar panel frames, was now a fortress stitched from wreckage. Burnt-out loaders wired with pressure charges, tractors armored with ceramic plating, drones with blades for wings. Doc stepped over a melted Varkish exosuit, the ground around it still scorched black. A kid lay curled in the wreckage of a turret rig, asleep, smudged with ash. Doc didn't speak. He just lifted the boy, moved him under a canopy, draped a fire tarp over him, and kept walking. 4 more days, he muttered. Just 4. High orbit. Varkesh. Command vessel. Iraak Tal. Supreme Pack Leader. Krixivarash stood motionless on the upper deck. Below, 2 war clerics fought, ritual knives, 4 limbs each, shrieking accusations. One claimed ritual failure. The other claimed dishonor through fear. Both bled out across the steel tiles. Krixivarash didn't flinch. He turned toward his command tactician and issued a single, final order. End it. New Copenhagen, midnight. Sensors caught it first. Dozens of dropcraft, all converging. 2 full wings of Varkesh landing craft, 4 siege beasts, 6 biomech artillery platforms, and something new, void harvesters, crawling, spiked constructs that fed on EM signatures and spat them back as psychic noise. The colony didn't panic. They got to work. Doc Halverson limped through the inner yard, torch on one hip, plasma cutter slung over the other. A tech team was wiring up salvaged thermal coils to the floor of the central corridor. He checked the wiring. Sloppy, but functional. "Route it through Breaker 2, he said, "and give me half a charge to bleed through the sidewall. They'll flank." A tech looked at him sideways. "You need a med bag." He snapped a shock cell into the rig and didn't blink. "I need 5 more hours. Then we can all collapse together." Pre-dawn. The sky tore open. This time, there was no Varkesh chant. No ceremony. Just impact. The first wave landed fast. No formations, just mass and speed. Siege beasts dropped plasma anchors into the soil and began pulse lobbing into the north quadrant. Void harvesters screeched, lighting up the colony's signal grid with false targets and sensor ghosts. And then came the infantry. Dozens, hundreds, 8-limbed, armored, screaming in codes too old to be mapped. The colony didn't answer with guns. It answered with traps. Thermal mines laced under false ground. Electro spikes triggered by soil vibration. Corridors sealed, then flooded with heat. Laser fences activated on timers, not signals. Doc oversaw 3 sectors at once, blood seeping through the side of his coat. Every time someone offered to help him sit, he just shook his head. "I'm fine. Save the meds for someone with plans to retire." One of the beasts breached the southern gate. Doc rerouted coolant pressure and blew half the tunnel. The explosion flung him across the floor. He stood up swearing in Norwegian and dragging his leg behind him. He took down 2 Varkesh with a pulse drill and a fire extinguisher. Late morning. Smoke curled off the outer wall. The Varkesh were pulling back again. A dozen of them lay dead in the courtyard. Only the ones who made it that far. The void harvesters were twitching wrecks. Siege beasts smoldered against craters they'd made themselves. Doc stood with one hand on a half-melted support beam, trying to breathe. Someone handed him water. He drank half, poured the rest over the torch battery to cool it. The comms console pinged softly. Fleet ETA, 2 days, 11 hours. He stared at the display. 1 day earlier, he thought, then shut it off. "We're still here," he said. "They'll have to do better." Twilight arrived. A new shadow moved through the smoke. It wasn't a drone, wasn't a scout. It was Krixivarash. He stepped off the ridgeline in silence, robes trailing ash, arms unclasped. No guards, no weapons drawn. He walked through the burning field, pausing beside one of the dead siege beasts, then turned his head, not toward the colony walls, but toward the scars in the soil. He looked. For a long time. Doc watched from the western tower, didn't flinch, didn't wave, just watched back. Krixivarash turned, vanished into the mist. Doc didn't say anything. He walked down from the tower, pulled Reyes's torch from its housing, checked the weld points, secured it to his rig. He didn't grab a rifle. Just the torch, and started walking toward the ridge, alone. Just a medic with half a lung and one good leg walking into the dark. The sky over New Copenhagen was red with smoke. Ash drifted sideways in the wind, heavy and slow, settling on ruined steel and broken stone. Doc Halverson walked through it alone, one boot dragging slightly, torch in hand, shock cell strapped to his chest like a promise. Every breath scraped his ribs. The bandage across his shoulder was soaked and stiff. He hadn't slept. He wasn't planning to. The colony faded behind him. No one followed. No one called out. The wind howled. A burnt husk of a Varkesh pulse beacon lay half-submerged in the dirt. "One last job," he muttered. "Then I can sleep." The southern ridge was a killing field. Charred siege beasts slumped in craters. Varkesh bodies sprawled where they'd fallen. Ritual bindings still wrapped around limbs torn open by mining charges. Smoke rolled through like low fog. Nothing moved. Nothing except the one standing figure at the center of the ruin. Krixavarish. The supreme pack leader of the Varkesh stood motionless, forearms low, head bowed. His armor was ceremonial now, clean, forged bone and obsidian. No weapons drawn. He didn't move until Doc stepped into the clearing. Then, one slow lift of the head. A pause. A voice, cold and precise. "You are not a warrior." Doc didn't stop walking. "You are not trained." "Neither were the kids in hydroponics," Doc replied. "You are broken." Doc spit blood. "You'll have to work for the rest." They didn't circle. No chants. No ritual calls. Just movement. Crix struck first. Fast, elegant, lethal. His honor blade carved through air, low and rising, aimed to take Doc's leg off at the knee. Doc dropped into the motion, half fall, half collapse, catching the edge of the blade against his forearm brace. Sparks flew. The torch flared to life in his other hand. He rammed it upward, straight into Crix's thigh. The supreme pack leader screamed, not in fear, but fury. Black ichor sprayed across Doc's chest, smoking where it hit metal. Crix staggered back 2 steps, then leapt forward with a downward strike. Doc blocked the first, barely. The second tore across his ribs. The third went in, deep into his shoulder. He dropped to one knee, pain flooding every nerve, and still swung the torch. The arc missed. His balance was gone. He fell hard. Crix raised both blades, closing the distance. Then Doc pulled the shock cell from his chest harness and slammed it into the exposed seam of Crix's armor. He hit the detonation stud. The blast knocked them both sideways. He didn't know how long he was down. The ash didn't fall anymore. Maybe the air had stilled. Doc blinked grit from his eyes and rolled onto his back. His left arm didn't respond. The shoulder was raw fire. His leg was worse, crushed under the fall, maybe broken again. Didn't matter. He looked up at the red sky, static in the clouds. Voices echoed, not real ones. Memories. "Reyes, you're the last one, Doc, so be the last one right. Nielsen, this isn't survival, it's delivery. Get the data out." A shadow passed across his face. Krixavarish. The alien was crawling now, 3 limbs dragging, one gone entirely. His left flank was scorched open. Part of his jaw hung loose, but he was still coming, still trying to finish it, still reaching for the blade. Doc grabbed the torch again. It was flickering. He stood, swayed, coughed blood. But he stood. Crix looked up at him. Even bleeding out, the Varkesh stared with fury. Doc said nothing. He stepped forward and swung. Once, then again. Then one more time. Until the body stopped moving. Until the firelight reflected only off broken armor. Doc dropped the torch, stumbled, collapsed beside the corpse. He didn't pass out, not yet. He just stared up at the sky, red and cracked, and listened to nothing at all. Time passed. Then, a sound. Low, mechanical. A flicker of shadow overhead. A scout drone descended, human markings, UNS colors, scanning softly. It hovered low, paused, and activated external comms. Human detected. Life signs unstable. Identity scan in progress. "Dr. Halverson, do you hear me?" Doc coughed, tried to sit up. Didn't work. He smiled anyway. "Took you long enough." "Negative," the drone replied. "Original ETA was 2 days, 11 hours. Fleet arrival is 24 hours early." The drone locked his vitals, transmitted coordinates. Above them, distant thunder rolled, not weather, but fleet re-entry. The sky had changed. He let his head fall back, eyes closed, first rest in almost 6 days. The relief fleet dropped into ground like judgment. 7 ships, black-hulled and bristling with weapons, meant for a war that was already over. The lead cruiser angled for low sync, locking scanners on New Copenhagen's upper atmosphere, expecting to find a crater where a colony had been. Instead, they found flame, and smoke, and a single signal ping in the southern fields, 1 life sign. Barely holding. The dropship crew said nothing on descent. They came in low and fast, skimming over the ruins. The colony was half rubble, half miracle. Towers sheared in half. Solar farms warped by blast heat. Mining tunnels collapsed like lungs kicked in. But the walls still stood. And beyond them, the southern fields. A dead zone of ash. They saw the corpse first. Krikstavarish, supreme pack leader of the Varkesh. Armor cracked down the center, jaw split open, forearms sprawled, unmoving. No ritual marks, no weapons in hand. Just death. And beside him, slumped against a melted fusion torch, half buried in the ash. 1 man. Medic Halverson, UNS Vigilant, the Marine team leader whispered, still alive. Another tech bent over him. What's he holding? They peeled the torch from his burned glove. It hissed. He didn't wake up. Fleet Medical Bay. 36 hours after retrieval. Orbit. The lights overhead buzzed low. The pulse monitor was steady, but slow. Ribs braced. Left arm immobilized. Puncture wound sealed above the hip. Oxygen line across his face. Doc Halverson opened his eyes. Just once. A med tech beside him sat up straighter. Sir, you're safe. You're aboard the Valhalla. Command wants... He cut her off with a whisper. Tell them they were early. Just not early enough. New Copenhagen surface, day 9. The colony was rebuilding. No cheer, no celebration. Just welding torches, sandbags. Scarred civilians laying brick beside orbital marines. They patched cables, sorted salvage, dug graves. And in the center of the square, a monolith. Polished, black, human steel, no flags, no wreaths, just names. 19 of them, each carved in with hand tools. Rough, unpolished, permanent. At the top, they held. You live. Humanity does not yield. Doc Halverson walked the line of names. 1 leg still braced, stitches still in. Every breath cost him something. But he walked. He paused in front of the last name, ran his hand over it. The weld scar across his palm caught the light. He didn't speak. He bowed his head and just stood there.
Hey there, space human. I'm really curious about your thoughts on this video. Drop a quick comment and let me know what's on your mind. Or just say hi if you prefer. Either way, I'd love to hear from you. Also, remember to check the pinned comment. Trust me, it's worth a look. Oh, and one last thing. I've chosen another video for you to watch. Just click the card here, or here if you want the whole playlist. See you there.